One aspect where the Brotherhood of Nod's military excelled over the global defense initiatives was their use of artillery. Specifically mobile artillery, as these vehicles complemented the Brotherhood's hit-and-run style of warfare. The most common of these units in the Brotherhood's arsenal during the First Tiberium War was simply called mobile artillery. These vehicles had quite a legacy, being first used by the Allied powers during the Second World War against the Soviet Union. The vehicle's 155mm cannon was effective at laying siege to bases and eliminating groups of infantry. The vehicle was often used to defend an Allied base against attacking Soviet forces, as it could effectively fire shells over a base's defensive walls. While mobile, these units were slow-moving and had weak armor, thus requiring other units to protect them, especially against aircraft. In addition, the mobile artillery had a minimum range, which meant it could not fire on any enemy units that were too close to it. The mobile artillery would remain in the arsenal of the Allied powers well after the Second World War. However, as technology improved, these vehicles would be retired from service, either scrapped or sold off to Third World countries, replaced with the new Multiple Launch Rocket System, or MLRS. Many of these Third World countries would come under the influence of the Brotherhood of Nod in the 21st century, who would procure whatever military equipment these countries had. While these mobile artillery units were considered outdated by the time of the First Tiberium War, they were still put to good use in the Brotherhood's arsenal, laying siege to GDI bases and providing indirect fire support for Nod's armor and infantry divisions. Just like the light and medium tanks in both Nod's and GDI's arsenals, the mobile artillery doesn't seem to represent a specific self-propelled artillery vehicle. Rather, it could be one of several Cold War-era systems. In particular, the in-game model seems to most resemble either the American M110 howitzer or French MK F3 155mm. Since the game manuals for both Red Alert and Tiberium Dawn state that the mobile artillery unit uses a 155mm cannon, I'd say the vehicle is more likely to be a French MK F3, since the American M110 is armed with a 203mm cannon. Another mobile artillery vehicle used by the Brotherhood later in the war was the G6 Rhino. This 3-axle, 6-wheeled, self-propelled howitzer was originally developed by the Republic of South Africa in the 1980s. The Rhino in Nod's arsenal was an improvement over the older 155mm self-propelled howitzers. The G6 could move faster, had a higher rate of fire, improved accuracy, and could act in a secondary anti-tank role. I do find it interesting how the Rhino was used in Nod's arsenal, given the fact that South Africa was part of the Global Defense Initiative. Perhaps the Brotherhood managed to capture some during their attempted takeover of South Africa. Alternatively, Nod could have, through subterfuge, acquired the schematics of the vehicle and manufactured their own version of it. Thanks to the Brotherhood's secret connections to various defense contractors, they were able to acquire some modern military equipment. This included the M270 used by GDI, or at least the chassis of the vehicle, which excluded the MLRS part of it. However, the Brotherhood would arm the vehicle with 2 MGR-1 Honest John rockets. While its rate of fire was negligible in comparison to GDI's MLRS, the Nod SSM had by far the longest range of any mobile artillery system in both factions' arsenals. While the Honest John rocket was capable of being outfitted with a nuclear warhead, the Brotherhood had outfitted theirs with napalm warheads. This made the SSM particularly lethal against groups of GDI infantry units. The vehicle was effective at cracking through base defenses, able to outrange GDI's advanced guard towers. Just like Nod's standard mobile artillery though, the SSM was slow-moving, had a minimum range, and required protection by other units, especially anti-air ones, as the SSM was particularly vulnerable to airstrikes. Just as Nod had multiple self-propelled howitzers, they also made use of another type of SSM launcher. This one, however, seems to greatly resemble the V-2 launcher used by the Soviet Union during the Second World War. The original V-2 excelled at bringing Allied base structures crumbling to the ground with its long-range rocket, and it seems like the Brotherhood of Nod used the ones in their arsenal in a similar manner. As with the self-propelled howitzers, surviving V-2 launchers probably made their way into the arsenals of Third World countries after the Second World War, which would later come under the Brotherhood's control. Nod used 2 of these SSMs to try and wipe out a resistance group in a southern European town. GDI Commando Nick Parker aided the resistance by successfully destroying both launchers. Another one of these SSMs was destroyed by Parker during his assault on one of Kane's temples in Egypt near the end of the First Tiberium War. With the defeat of the Brotherhood at the end of the First Tiberium War, the organization lost much of its mobile artillery. But with the return of Kane and the outbreak of the Second Tib War, the Brotherhood realized they needed a way to deliver damage without fear of retaliation. To that end, Nod developed a new long-range artillery platform. While this new vehicle didn't have an official name, it performed its role as a mobile artillery vehicle excellently. It had great range and was extremely accurate, even against moving targets, with the main gun able to rotate 360 degrees. The high explosive shells fired by the vehicle's cannon were effective against all enemy units and structures. Because of the recoil generated when firing its main gun, this artillery unit had to deploy 2 outriggers for stabilization before firing. While deployed, the vehicle couldn't move, making it vulnerable to retaliatory strikes, especially from aircraft. Like with past mobile artillery units, this vehicle was slow-moving and had a minimum range. The only weapon in GDI's arsenal that could outrange this unit was the electromagnetic pulse cannon. GDI Commander Michael McNeil put this cannon to good use in stopping Nod artillery units from destroying his Kodiak Mobile Command Center after it had been grounded by an ion storm near Nod territory. In order for Kane to achieve his goal of launching a world-altering missile to transform Earth's carbon-based life to Tiberium-based life, he first needed to destroy the GDSS Philadelphia space station. This was to prevent the station from destroying Kane's own world-altering missile as it made its way into Earth's atmosphere. To that end, Kane deployed 3 ICBM launchers at his base in Cairo, which would be launched against the space station as it orbited over Egypt. However, Michael McNeil initiated an assault on this base, destroying the ICBMs before they could launch against the Philadelphia. In an alternate timeline, the Brotherhood of Nod would assault the GDI base of Hammerfest in Norway, deploying 3 ICBM launchers at optimal locations in the region. From here, the Brotherhood could triangulate the Philadelphia's orbital position. Once acquired, the ICBMs would destroy the space station, paving the way for Kane to launch his world-altering missile. After Kane emerged from stasis in the interim years between the Second and Third Tiberium Wars, he went to work reunifying the Brotherhood and rebuilding the organization's military. Once Kane had succeeded in his rebuilding endeavors, he began the Third Tiberium War by successfully destroying the GDSS Philadelphia. The destruction was timed to coincide with the annual World Energy Summit, an event that was attended by GDI's high-ranking officials. With all GDI's leaders killed in the space station's destruction, the organization's treasurer, Redmond Boyle, became its new acting director. This was all according to Kane's plan, as he orchestrated Boyle's absence from the Energy Summit. To keep him from attending the summit, Kane ordered his AI, Legion, to launch a covert operation to raid Boyle's treasury. During this raid, the Brotherhood force made use of a new mobile artillery unit called the Spectre.
Spectre online. None shall see me coming.
Developed during the post-Second Tiberium War period, Nod's Spectre stealth artillery tank was designed as the ultimate evolution of the artillery-based guerrilla warfare tactics first developed in Southeast Asia during the mid-20th century. Alternating between 2 modes, one high-speed and stealthed, the other visible and static, but capable of launching high-impact artillery from a massive distance, the Spectre is a confounding opponent to face in battle. Able to enter occupied territory undetected, deploy, take out key structures, and vanish before the enemy can hope to react, it is truly an insidious and dangerous opponent. This is even more the case when the unit is paired with the equally stealthy Nod Shadow Team, which has been equipped with targeting beacons, allowing the Spectre to launch bombardment attacks from an even greater distance. Like many vehicles and structures in Nod's arsenal, the Spectre's design seems to mimic that of a Scorpion, with the vehicle's 2 front stabilizer legs representing pincers, and the large cannon attached to the back of the vehicle representing the arachnid's tail. When in mobility mode, the Spectre uses its treads to move swiftly across the battlefield, a major improvement over previous mobile artillery vehicles. Combined with its stealth generator, the Spectre could quickly reach its designated target undetected. Similar to the artillery used by Nod in the Second Tiberium War, the Spectre had to first deploy 6 claw-shaped outriggers to stabilize the vehicle when firing its cannon. The vehicle would have to disengage its stealth generator when deploying though, making it vulnerable to the enemy. The powerful cannons on the Spectres would fire high explosive rounds that could quickly bring down structures. The shell's wide blast radius could easily take out clustered units. As previously mentioned, Nod shadow teams could infiltrate an enemy base and place down a beacon which enabled Spectre crews to bombard the target location from well outside their line of sight. However, the beacon itself would typically be destroyed during the bombardment, resulting in the need for the shadow team to place a new beacon on the target, assuming the target survived the initial barrage. These shadow teams also had to be wary of standing too close to the beacons, lest they be killed by friendly fire. If the Spectre was discovered by stealth-detecting units, there wasn't much it could do other than to pack up and try to get away from them, especially if these units engaged the Spectre within the minimum range of its cannon, making the Nod vehicle unable to fight back. When dealing with infantry, the Spectre could try and run them over. Spectres in the Black Hand's arsenal would have their stealth generators removed in order to keep them in line with the sub-faction's combat doctrine. The Spectre would continue to see action in the Brotherhood's arsenal throughout the Third Tiberium War, alongside another new mobile artillery vehicle called the Beam Cannon.
Beam cannon ready for engagement.
The Beam Cannon was another weapon system created in the interim years between the Second and Third Wars. Legion first gained access to this vehicle while leading Nod forces in an assault against Brother Marcion of the Black Hand's fortress in the Australian outback. During the Third Tiberium War, an unnamed Nod commander who was tasked with defending Kane's Temple Prime in Sarajevo was given access to beam cannons. These small, 6-wheeled vehicles would be used to destroy a group of Nod traitors who assaulted the temple after wiping out a GDI attack force. Now, I will note that there is a discrepancy with the beam cannon. During the Sarajevo mission, the Nod Eva says that the beam cannon projects a particle beam, implying that the vehicle is armed with a particle beam weapon.
The beam cannon is Nod's advanced artillery vehicle, which projects a concentrated particle beam at the enemy from a great distance.
However, if the Avatar Warmeg were to use its Commandeer technology ability on the beam cannon, the description says that the Avatar would attain a, quote, secondary laser. So, is the beam cannon's weapon a particle beam or a laser? The ultimate answer to this question lies in an old faction feature article on IGN, where Command & Conquer 3 developers Jason Bender and Matt Bitton provided details on some of the units for each faction before the game's release. In the article featuring the Brotherhood of Nod, the background info for the beam cannon says, "The beam cannon is a relatively fast-moving artillery platform that makes Nod's advanced laser technology mobile. Though not intended for direct attacks against enemy armor, beam cannons can deal terrific damage to structures given sufficient time to focus their lasers. What's more, their energies may be used to enhance the range and power of Nod's obelisks of light, and multiple beam cannons may similarly augment one another's attacks when in close proximity. Beam cannons have even been known to deflect their beams off of Venom patrol craft." So, despite what is verbally stated in-game, all other evidence proves that the beam cannon's weapon is a laser. Keeping things within the context of the Tiberium timeline, I'd also like to add that the beams of units and structures using laser weapons, all of which are in the Brotherhood's arsenal, are the color red. This is in contrast to any unit or structure that is stated to use a particle or proton beam, which is shown to have either a green, blue, or purple color. While the beam cannon and Spectre seem to perform the exact same roles in the Brotherhood's arsenal, they did have some noticeable differences, besides the fact that one was armed with a laser and the other a howitzer. The beam cannon was cheaper to produce and could be fielded onto the battlefield more quickly when compared to the Spectre. While the Spectre was an indirect fire weapon, the beam cannon was a direct fire one. While a single beam cannon wasn't too much of a threat, multiple beam cannons could combine their beams to create a singular powerful one, which could quickly melt down structures and vehicles. Infantrymen wouldn't fare any better, being instantly killed by the beams. While a reliable siege unit, the beam cannon could be used to support Nod's obelisks of light. The beam cannon's laser could drive the capacitors of an obelisk, supercharging the structure by increasing its attack range, recharge rate, and vision. Up to 4 beam cannons could contribute to a single obelisk. Additionally, beam cannons could work with Venom patrol craft to extend the range of their laser attacks. By using mirrors attached to the bottom of Venoms, beam cannons could reflect their lasers off the mirrors and onto an enemy target. The lasers could even be reflected off multiple Venom's mirrors. This kept the beam cannons well behind the front lines, while still causing damage to enemy units and infrastructure. Of course, the beam cannon had its own share of weaknesses. While cheaper to produce compared to the Spectre, the beam cannon's movement speed was noticeably slower. The beam cannon had no stealth capabilities and weak armor, so if left unprotected, the vehicle would be quickly destroyed. While the beam cannon had superior direct fire capabilities, it had trouble hitting targets atop a hill. This was an issue the Spectre had no problem dealing with, as it was able to fire its shells in a high arc. Being light vehicles, both the Spectre and beam cannon could be airlifted by Nod's carry-all transport. Even with these advanced mobile artillery vehicles, the Brotherhood was still left as a shadow of its former self at the end of the Third Tiberium War. Any surviving beam cannons and Spectres were only used for special covert operations and protecting Threshold 19, also known as Kane's Tower, off the coast of southern Italy. But as the Brotherhood continues to gather data from the tower itself, new and improved mobile artillery units could be created to replenish and revitalize the Brotherhood, as they draw ever closer to their goal of ascension.